Recording has started.
Okay. I have 534. Chair Hyland, is that what you have?
Yes.
Chair Hyland, do you want to introduce the meeting or shall I?
Go ahead, please.
This is Sunshine Ordinance Task Force Education Outreach and Training Committee of the City and County of San Francisco. We are taking place in hearing room 408 at City Hall. This is a regular meeting of May 23, 2023. Remote access and or in-person participation. The Sunshine Ordinance Task Force and its committees convene hybrid meetings that allow in-person attendance, in-person public comment, remote access for petitioners and respondents, and remote public comment via teleconference using WebEx. The WebEx remote link-in is bit.ly/3NWG2XE. The password is Sunshine. The telephone call-in number is 415-655-0001, and the meeting ID is 2590-565-2543 ##. If you wish to enter the speaker line, please press *3. Chair Hyland, do you want to read meeting decorum?
No, you may.
Meeting decorum. Any member of the Education, Outreach, and Training Committee may call for decorum due to the disorderly conduct of meeting participants. Persons who engage in threatening and or menacing behavior may be asked to leave. Are you ready for the first item?
Yes, please.
Item number 1, call to order, roll call, and agenda changes. Roll call. Member Hill.
Present.
Member Hill present. Chair Hyland.
Present.
Chair Hyland present. We have a quorum. Gentlemen, I am not aware of any agenda changes unless the two of you are.
No.
Member Hill, are you aware of any?
No, thank you.
All right. Okay. Shall we move to item number 2?
Yes, please.
Adoption of the minutes for the January 24, 2022 Education, Outreach, and Training Committee. These minutes have already been approved. The March minutes should have been included. So I suggest that we...
No, just stop right there. Just introduce the item, please.
I'm sorry?
Just introduce the item.
Adoption of the minutes for the January 24, 2022 Education, Outreach, and Training Committee meeting.
Okay. I'm going to make a motion to postpone this to the call of the chair. The wrong meeting minutes were uploaded to this item, and the wrong date was referenced. So I'm going to make a motion.
That.
Okay, thank you. And we'll take public comment on that motion.
If there are any members of the public who would like to make public comment on this matter, you may approach the podium. If you're joining us via call-in, you can use your telephone by pressing *3 to raise your hand, or otherwise use your computer or telephone to indicate raising your hand. We have one person with their hand raised at this time. I will unmute them. I defer to Cheryl. Caller, you've been unmuted.
Yes, does that mean I start, or what does it mean?
Mr. Warfield?
Do I start, or do I wait for somebody to say, go ahead and speak?
You can go ahead and speak.
Thank you. In light of what I believe the chair has said, I think it's an eminently sensible thing not to approve minutes that are the wrong minutes and to put it off until presumably the next meeting, except that the meetings don't happen that often. So there's another issue whether it might be necessary to take it up at the full task force. Maybe you might discuss that. But in any case, it doesn't make sense to publicly adopt minutes that where the agenda packet has the wrong ones. Thank you very much.
Okay. Just double checking. I do not see any additional hands raised at this time.
Okay, there's one member of the public in the room, but he has not approached, so we will close public comment at this point on this item. Please take the roll.
Chair Hyland?
Aye.
Chair Hyland, aye. Member Hill?
Aye.
Member Hill, aye. Moved by Chair Hyland, seconded by Member Hill to postpone the meeting minutes because the wrong minutes were posted and the wrong date was referenced. Chair Hyland, shall we move to general public comment?
Yes, please.
Item number 3, public comment. Members of the public may address the Education, Outreach, and Training Committee on matters that are within the committee's jurisdiction but not on today's agenda.
Yes, if you'd like to make general public comment at this time, you can approach the podium if you're in person. And if you're joining us remotely, you can raise your hand by pressing *3 or otherwise raising your hand. Okay, we have a person in the room approaching the podium.
Are you ready to begin?
I'm ready.
Okay. Go ahead.
The Compliance and Amendments Committee referred my file number 22092 to this committee in February, and I'm interested in having it come up again in this committee. Back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Hillier. Anybody else in the room would like to do public comment? Seeing none, Victor, it's over to you. Anybody else online?
Yes, we do have one person online with us. I will unmute them at this time.
Yes, good afternoon. It's Peter Warfield, Executive Director of Library Users Association. Library Users 2004 at yahoo.com and P.O. Box 170544, San Francisco, California 94117-0544. Couple points. I haven't been to one of these meetings in quite a while. First of all, the meeting time is extremely inconvenient for anybody who has any larger issues with respect to what's going on in the city, because it coincides with the Board of Supervisors meeting. And in fact, at this very moment, the Board of Supervisors is having public comment. So there's a real question of conflict. Let me say that the full task force was wise to take our advice, which we made repeatedly over time, after the Board of Supervisors changed their regular meeting day from Monday to Tuesday. This was when Matt Gonzalez was the chair of the Board of Supervisors back in around 2003 or 4. When the supervisors changed their meetings to Tuesday, there was a conflict with the full board, with the full Sunshine Task Force and the Board of Supervisors, and we recommended repeatedly, and ultimately the Sunshine Task Force agreed to change their Tuesday date, which never coincided previously with the SUPs, changed it to Wednesday. And I would urge you to change your meeting date, regular meeting date, to Wednesday or some other time when it doesn't conflict with the Board of Supervisors meeting. With respect to the substance of your work, I think in principle the Education, Outreach, and Training Committee could have a strong role. But in the first instance, I think when there is weak enforcement by the Sunshine Task Force, who needs the Education, Outreach, and Training Committee when nobody is really enforcing or firmly or strongly enforcing the law? And you are about, you have a particular role. I can certainly say, speaking personally, that I was extremely disappointed that earlier in May, when a consequence of flagrant and defiant refusal to follow what the Sunshine Task Force had said, when that came from the Library Commission, the Sunshine Task Force did not take the one step that is mandated by law for a refusal to turn over documents that were ordered to be turned over, and that is to report the issue to the district attorney and or the attorney general. So if you're not going to enforce, then nobody has need of EOT. I would also urge you to consider who best benefits from EOT, and I think that would be the complainants and the folks who are running the show, which would be the mayor at the top. Thank you very much.
Okay, just checking the list. I do not see any other members of the public requesting general public comment.
We also have an additional member in the room. If they'd like to make general public comment, please approach the microphone. I see her shaking her head. So, okay. General public comment is now closed. Cheryl, please read the next item.
Item number 4, file number 22142, complaint filed by Winship Hillier against the Behavioral Health Commission for allegedly violating Administrative Code Section 67.15A, C, and D, and California Government Code Section 5495-4A, 5494-1, 54956C2, 64954.3A by failing to adopt bylaws allowing members of the public to up to 3 minutes for public comment and other restrictions, failing to adopt time for regular meetings, failing to send out notice of hearing in a timely manner, failing to approve appropriate minutes, failing to allow public comment opportunity at the site visit committee.
All right. I see we have Mr. Hillier here. Is there anybody from the Behavioral Health Commission present?
Oh, my
Seeing-
apologies. Let me unmute them.
Okay. Mr. Hillier, feel free to approach.
Hi, good evening. My name is Marlo Simmons. I'm representing the Behavioral Health Commission. I don't know if anyone else is joining.
Great. Welcome, Ms. Simmons.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is a brand new case, Mr. Hillier.
It
So
is.
basically, we're just going to unpack it a little bit, make sure all the apples to apples, oranges to oranges, and most likely recommend it to the full task force. We're not going to get too much into the merits at this stage, unless there's something that you feel should come to the attention of the full task force when they see it. So with that, I will give you your time, Cheryl, when you're ready.
Does he get 5 minutes?
Yes.
Okay. Shelley, you ready?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. The Behavioral Health Commission has not submitted any sort of written response to this complaint. And so we feel that they shouldn't be allowed to speak at this hearing. It would be a violation of our due process rights to have to shoot from the hip and respond to objections that they are telling us and you for the very first time today. We deserve notice and the opportunity to be heard. We deserve. We need to know what the objections are that we have to overcome at the hearing in order to be able to speak effectively. And as there have been no objections submitted, I assume, if this were a court of law, this would amount to a default or an admission of all of the claims asserted. So we have nothing to respond to. Back to you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Is anybody here in support of the petitioner? Anybody online in support of the petitioner, please indicate to Victor by hitting *3, raising your hand.
We have one person raising their hand at this time.
Okay.
Hello, my name is Clark Gray. I'm here.
Hello, Mr. Gray. Are you speaking in support of this petitioner, or did you want to make general comment on the item?
I'm here with Marlo Simmons.
Oh, you're with Ms. Simmons. Okay,
Yes.
all right. Then your chance will come up after she speaks. So, Victor, assuming we don't have anyone else in support of the petitioner.
Okay, we have one more person with a hand raised. It might be another staff person.
Okay. Go ahead.
Afternoon. I want to support the petitioner. He seems to be making a really good point. If the board didn't provide the response, then it's kind of very hard for him to be appealing to his case without knowing what.
Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt. I believe this might be more appropriate for public comment once we get to that point.
Sounds good. I'm done.
This is a person with facts and evidence for this matter.
Right. Okay.
But we feel free to comment once we get to public comment. Thank you very much.
Okay. So, Cheryl, please let Ms. Simmons know when you're ready for her to talk. And Ms. Simmons, if you want to divide your 5 minutes between the other speaker and yourself, please let us know, or if it's just going to be you talking at this stage, and there'll be a chance for rebuttals later on down the road as well.
Ms. Simmons, are you going to split your time?
Okay, give me a moment.
Thank you. That was helpful.
Okay.
I got muted again. I was coughing, so I muted myself. Sorry about that.
No, that's fine.
Amber, I'm going to go ahead and make a few comments, and then I will definitely try to be brief so you can have time to add. I have a couple comments on each of the items, just basically breaking that summary into individual parts. I do want the commission to know that these complaints are very similar. Some of them I question if they're not duplicates to previous complaints Mr. Hillier has filed. We are working very hard as staff to support the commission to be compliant with the Sunshine Ordinance. Amber is the first ever civil service employee working for the Behavioral Health Commission, and I was recently assigned to support Amber. We have had the city attorney provide public records 101 training for staff. We've established and implemented procedures to ensure compliance with Sunshine Ordinance rules. We've developed and regularly update a tracking log showing when documents are submitted and posted. We've distributed an open government training by the SF Ethics Commission to commissioners, and we're working with the city attorney to schedule additional training and discussion directly with the commissioners. These documents that I mentioned have previously been submitted. So it feels very much like we're kind of repeating similar issues. This Behavioral Health Commission currently has 7 vacancies. We've been unable to meet quorum, and while we are spending time defending ourselves against what really boil down to typo or technical errors, we are not addressing the significant needs the commission has for support. So that said, item by item, so adopting the bylaws to allow members of the public up to 3 minutes to public comment. I don't see anywhere in 67.15 the public testimony section mentions bylaws. Our compliance procedures that we put in place are that every meeting has general comment and every item has public comment. And that has been consistently practiced. If there was one committee meeting where one item got overseen, there might have been a miscommunication in the meeting. Failing to send out a notice of hearing in a timely manner. Again, we have compliance procedures in place and we have a tracking log, so we can submit that. And again, if there was ever a time where a meeting was not notified, was an oversight. There are differences in opinion between Mr. Hillier and the city attorney, whose advice we are following about the return to in-person meetings, which has been complicated. We're happy to answer questions about that. Failing to adopt times for regular meetings. This again is that issue. We are following guidance of the city attorney. We have not had quorum in the last 2 meetings, and we are working actively to fill those seats. Failure to approve appropriate minutes. There's nothing specific about minutes or what might have been missing, so additional information is requested. And then failing to allow public comment for the site visit committee on May 18th. That's the date of the general BHC meetings. There was no site visit committee on May 18th, so additional details are needed to defend against that. And I do want to just in closing say that Mr. Hillier has, a lot of concerns about a lot of technical details. We really want to support his rights to see these rules followed. He also attends all of the regular BHC meetings, all of the committee meetings, takes regular advantage of opportunity for public comment on almost all agenda items, and we respond to all of his requests for public information. And so the spirit of the Sunshine Ordinance certainly seems to be upheld. And so I just really, and I don't know if this is a personal plea to Mr. Hillier, if we could just get to the work of the commission, and fill our vacancies, that would be good if we could have that time. So I'm going to stop there, and I don't know how much time I took, but Amber, please, however you want to add to that, please do.
Amber, are you unmuted?
Moment, I think there's some unmuting issues. There she goes.
Here. Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
I would say this is my first year in. I'm still learning. I'm trying to take the advice for face value and then follow under the city attorney when there are things that are related to protected health information, disclosure to the public, making sure that I am doing everything as it should be. And I think the public's been given ample opportunity to speak at every meeting. So some of these are asked and said before they've been answered, and it does seem a little repetitive.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Gray. Anything else to add?
I think that's it.
All right. Anyone else speaking on behalf of the respondent as party to the respondent? Hearing
If
none.
you'd like to speak, yeah, you can raise your hand, but I don't believe there's anybody else.
All right, very good. And no one else in the room. Okay, the matter is before us. Quick question, Ms. Simmons, for you. So about, I'd say, let's see, it was, I don't know if you know, we have some history between your body and our body. We had a order determination in April of last year as part of the consent agenda, file 21021, as well as several others, which was basically a laundry list of violations against the BHC. And at the time, there was some question of who's on first, who's on second. I just want to get an idea. What exactly is your role, Amber's role? Is Mr. Greer still in the picture? What's the structure there? Because we can also help you with Sunshine compliance. If we have an idea of who's doing what, that would help us. So if you could just quickly summarize, you mentioned you were staff. What's your capacity?
So I'm the Deputy Director for Behavioral Health Services, which is within the Department of Public Health, the Board of Supervisors, and in an ordinance 2020, I could have the year wrong, basically charged BHS with appointing a civil service staff person to staff the commission. Amber was hired, it could be more than 6 months at this point, but relatively recently, to be the dedicated staff person for the commission. And I have been assigned to support Amber in, kind of getting the Board of Supervisors to appoint members, helping to address the Sunshine Ordinance Task Force complaints that we deal with, and just generally doing what I can for the organizational development. And so,
Right.
and I worked
Mr.
with Amber to establish the
Training.
policies, procedures, and training that we're working on.
Right.
And we've submitted all those materials before for the previous round of complaints. And our attempts to address them have been, 99% successful. Do we ever make an error? Similar to, the posting of your minutes, there are errors that happen in human error, but we've put a lot of things in place that definitely, I believe, protect Mr. Hillier's rights to speak at meetings, to know where the meetings are, and to give him any information he requests that's legal for us to share.
Now, just curious, do you have a website that I can go to and look at the staff structure? Is that public?
No, at least I don't believe the website, as far as I can recall, and Amber, correct me, has the general information about the BHC, the members, and
It has the member.
the members and the minutes, agendas, and supporting documents. Mr. Hillier has recently pointed out, which is very helpful, that there are some mismatches with the documents and a couple documents missing. So we're working to address that, and Amber's going through training right now for SFGov website maintenance, which we did not provide for her initially.
Sounds like perhaps you should extend Mr. Hillier a job offer. I think he'd be dynamite putting everything up.
We very much, we talk a lot. I try to incorporate his input as much as I can, but when the city attorney differs, we default to the city attorney.
All right, that's my next question for you. I'd like to hear a little bit more about that, what the city attorney is telling you, but I'm going to pause and give Mr. Hillier a chance to jump in here just in the interest of equitable time. So, Mr. Hillier, is there anything you'd like to jump in with at this point?
Yeah.
I figured you might. Go ahead.
Okay.
Let me know when I can speak.
This isn't going to be timed, is it?
No, this
Yeah.
is not time. Go ahead.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yes, well, Marlo is correct that I have raised some of these issues before. However, as I pointed that out in my complaint, I said, we've brought these issues before, but the task force didn't rule on them. You didn't say that there was no violation of these sections, and you didn't say that there was a violation of these sections. You just didn't take any position. And so we feel entitled to raise them again on new incidences.
Are these above and beyond what we covered in the consent agenda? Because we got a pretty long laundry list back.
Oh, yes, they're completely different.
Okay.
I would not raise those issues again.
I'm looking at this. There's some similarities that I'm looking side by side. So anyway, but so this is stuff, and Ms. Simmons and Ms. Gray, as I said, about a year ago, we had a pretty good laundry list of everything that the BHC needed to do to fall into compliance. Mr. Greer at the time was a advisor consultant. I don't know if he still is or not, and he was the point person at the time. So I didn't hear from you whether he's still involved in the mix. It sounds like it's just the two of you now. But it sounds like Mr. Hillier is saying there are additional things that need to be tightened up. Is that correct, Mr. Hillier?
Absolutely, and the agenda item is not correct. It says, it mentions section 67.15A, C, and D, but we only complained about 67.15C, and that was not one of the items on the laundry list from April of last year.
Okay.
The numbers are wrong. It's the last two sections are, it says on the agenda 54.956 C2. I have no idea what that is, but it should be 54.953 C2. And then it says 64.954.3A. That should be 54.954.3A.
Yeah, I'm looking at your original complaint. I see those here. Okay.
Okay. Let's see. There was something else. I'm trying to read through my notes. See, I'm really bad at doing this shooting from the hip business. I have short-term memory problems, and I just can't. I can't do this. I need the department's responses in writing in order to overcome their defenses.
Right. So let me throw that back to you, Ms. Simmons. When this complaint, I guess, communication from Mr. Hillier. Let's see. So in our package, I am only seeing one document, Cheryl, and that is the
The one that we
date filed with SOTF. So, Mr. Hillier, we don't see. We just see your complaint filed with us. We don't see your original, request for information to BHC. Am I missing that?
The exhibits, I did supply numerous exhibits, and And there's not an information request. This isn't a records issue. This is an Article 2. These are all, well, they're mostly Brown Act.
Okay, so your complaints are addressed to us about their their meeting lack of meeting structure, basically, right?
Exactly.
So
exactly.
you have not actually addressed them in any communication here that I can see. I see a letter to Matt Yankee. I see your file with us.
A letter to Matt Yankee?
Yes, I see.
What exhibit number?
Let's take a look. So, of course, I'm going by what we have here. So this is November 20th, 22. And this is a letter to Matt Yankee.
The complaint letter. Yes, that's the complaint.
Right. So I see the complaint, but I don't see, you said that they haven't responded to any of this. Well, you haven't actually written anything to them. You've complained to us about their meeting, their lack of meeting structure and whatnot. So this is their chance to respond is how I see this. I mean, just to go back and answer your earlier question, like you said, this is not a records request. It's not an IDR that you asked them of, right? So let's move past that. But
I would direct your attention to Exhibit 3, which is an email to the commission.
Okay.
That's lengthy, covering these issues. Many of these issues were brought up with them, and also the complaint was sent out to them for a response.
All right. So where is that? Perhaps Member Hill has his finger on that too. I'm scrolling through here. So Cheryl, if that is indeed in here, that would be very nice to have that index for us so we can quickly jump to the correct page. Because probably what you have, your Exhibit 3 doesn't necessarily jive with what we have in our PDF here. Mr. Hillier.
I'm looking at what you printed out in your binder that you put on the table for the
I
public.
found it. It's PDF number, page number 29.
Okay. Okay. I see the index there. There we go. All right.
Do you have it, Mr. Hillier?
Okay. So this was April 12th to DPH,
Yes.
Please distribute the attached to all behavioral health commissioners in connection with please distribute. Thank you. That's a support. All right. So this is communication from you to BHC. All right. So either way, them being here in this meeting is, their opportunity to respond to this, and I'm sure they'll have something, in writing after this. Ms. Simmons, you responded to a couple of the allegations, if you like. Is this something that you're going to put in writing based on your DCA's?
Can put something in writing. I think that we need additional detail for many of the, I took the summary, what's on the agenda, and broke that into individual pieces.
All right. I think
my comments, my verbal comments, which I can submit in writing if that's helpful, were just responses to those.
Right.
For
That
three of them, there's not enough detail for me to work with Amber to investigate, so we can respond.
Okay, so if you have a short response to Mr. Hillier for which he can provide more information, it'd be nice if this, has a little bit of, back and forth developed in it before we package it and send it to the full task force so that we can get right into, what we're trying to do here rather than do this at the full task force. Does that make sense?
Certainly.
Okay. Mr. Hill, Member Hill, did you have anything to add? I'm trying to jump between the video monitor and. So
yeah, no, thank you. No, I think generally I have to admit I was confused by the numbers as well, and was trying to decipher some of that when I was doing the research on this. So I appreciate the clarity. I would the lack of detail, and I don't know, and you'll have to let me know, Chair Highland, if that's something that we want to get into now. But I was, trying to find just sort of like specific examples, the way that it read was, was like that they don't do public comment, that there are no 3 minutes for public comment, that's not allowed. So if you can point me to, and again, let me know if that's something that we do now or something that we do with the full body, were there specific dates and specific times for specific items.
Yeah, my instinct at this point is probably to continue this back to us, let them do a little bit of back and forth.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, it doesn't feel fully vetted to take to the full board.
Right. And Cheryl, on page 23 of our PDF, Mr. Hillier has provided us an index of exhibits. That'd have been great to have front and center at the very top, since he's already given us one. Pop that up there. And then, then we can at least know that there's an order to follow rather than finding it halfway down through the packet. Anytime they give us an index, put it at the top. It's very useful, I think. So, Mr. Hillier, back to you. Are you hearing a little bit of this? Does this make sense? That we're trying to, you've gone to some work here, and they're going to ask you for a little bit more detail. But they're saying, for instance, like there was no meeting on May 18th of 2022, as you referenced. So those kind of apples and oranges need to be sorted out before we can.
They are sorted out, and that allegation is absolutely wrong. And I will refer you to page 27 of the PDF, number 6, on November 8th, 2022, not 18th. 18th was the commission meeting. We can make other complaints about the commission meeting, but number 6, the allegation that they didn't provide general public comment was about a meeting that happened on November 8th, 2022, a meeting of the site visit committee, not the commission. All
right, I'm sorry. So page 27 on my PDF, and Member Hill, I don't know if you're seeing this, is mostly blank page.
Yes.
And something stamped at the bottom. So I can't even read this or make sense of it. So is that what you're referring to?
No, this says 27 on the copy that is provided for the public in the back on the table.
That doesn't always gel with what we have. So what is the
page 17 of the letter?
17 of the letter.
I think 27 might be page 21.
You referenced the index as being on page 22. It's on page 29 on this copy on the desk here.
Right. That's what we're dealing with here. Okay, so let's go back here. So Member Hill, page 21, is that what you're saying?
Well, if you're looking at the page numbering that has 27 at the bottom, that's page 22.
I see that now. Yeah. Okay.
And there's numbers on the top left as well. There's multiple page numbers.
Oh my goodness. To Mr. Hillier's comment, I did note that that there was a specific complaint about a specific site visit committee. I was interested in hearing more about that. But again, is that something that we do here? Is that something that we do at the full board? I mean, clearly there are issues I think that we eventually want to take.
Right. So, Ms. Simmons, it looks like he's detailed some pretty lengthy incidences here. I think it would behoove you to respond to them one by one. And we'll start with that. And within that response, if there's any clarification you're seeking, list that. But this does look pretty detailed to me. He's listing dates, meetings, who was there. Would you agree with that?
And I will apologize to Mr. Hillier that I was going off of the agenda for this meeting. That blurb said May 18th. I assumed that was 2023. I did not realize we were talking about a meeting that happened a year ago. So when we respond, I will take that into account.
Okay.
The complaint was submitted last year.
It is difficult to keep up with the communication and when the attachments have 100 pages. And there's new complaints after old complaints. Like in his opening comments, Mr. Hillier raised previous packages of complaints. And so I would ask for a little grace in understanding us trying to keep track of what we're responding to and when. is
Yes, that is difficult.
challenging. Yeah. But we will absolutely respond
Okay, so
point by point, and it would be helpful for me to clarify that if
let me
in
just
some
let me
in
just
some
stop.
cases there's a difference.
Let me just stop
Go
you
ahead.
there 1 second. So going back, and you're right. So the complaint summary, file 22142, as I'm looking at it here on page 2 of our packet, is what this is about, which is complaint filed by Winship Hillier against the BHC for allegedly violating administrative code. There's a list of code numbers there, by failing to adopt bylaws allowing members of the public up to 3 minutes public comment and other restriction, failing to adopt times for regular meetings, failing to send out notice of hearing in a timely manner, failing to approve appropriate minutes, failing to allow public comment opportunity at the site visit committee. Now, the way you've listed all these things, Mr. Hillier, with parentheses, rather with semicolons, it all looks like you're referring to that site visit committee on May 18th, 2022. That's at first read.
What semicolon? What parentheses? What page are you on? I can't follow you.
Yeah, I just told you, page 2, your actual complaint.
Okay.
Okay, and it might be. So that is our SOTF summary, right? Cheryl, did you put that together, that paragraph?
I did that with Victor.
With Victor. Okay, so that's our summary. Okay, let me look at the actual allegation. You write, we allege that on May 18, 2022, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so you are also saying, so all these violations are about that particular meeting on May 18th, 2022. Is that a good starting spot? Are we agreed? Are we agreed on that? We're not.
Further down on that paragraph, 4 lines from the bottom.
September 21st.
November 8th, 2022.
Okay, and then you on September 21st. And then okay, all right. So you're referencing 4 or 5 different meetings, and then a litany of offenses. Is that about right?
I've got 3 different dates, I think. Yeah.
May 18th, September 21st,
November 8th.
November 8th. And then they also referenced July 20th.
Those were the
Previous, those are.
There were minutes passed at.
Okay. Gotcha. That's exactly why we're unpacking all this now. So make sure we get it
I
up.
see what you're saying. Yeah, there are six violations, not quite a litany.
For you, that's not a litany, but for some, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So our summary should have said over the course of several meetings would have been a better summary, right? That have got us all on track. And then we could have gone into the details of your allegation where you actually list, because you're listing 2 to 3 violations per meeting, then you're going on to the next meeting, slightly different, next meeting, slightly different. So that's how I'm seeing this. Okay.
Chair Heather, is now the time for us to be like, this is the first one? Like, and ask the question, like, bylaws that neither include the rule allowing the member to the public. Like, so it sounds like to me that they are allowing the members of the public, but the complaint is about it not being in the bylaws. Is that, am I understanding that correctly?
Well, this is the thing. I'm tempted not to read our summary at all, Tao, and just.
No, I agree with you. Like, it has the wrong numbers. It doesn't correctly describe it. I'm actually looking at the allegation.
Yes. Okay. So.
May I respond to that?
Sure.
That's the first allegation. And our complaint is that they have not adopted a rule. Now, Ms. Simmons said that the rule in 67.15C doesn't say anything about bylaws, but it does. That's a little bit disingenuous. Each policy body, and I quote, each policy body shall adopt a rule providing that each person wishing to speak on an item, blah, 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 blah. That rule can be in the bylaws or it can be outside of the bylaws as a special rule of order. Those are just technical differences. The fact is they have not adopted any rule anywhere to that effect that they needed to do, and they have adopted a contrary rule that provides otherwise than is required.
Interesting. So it'd be interesting for the task force to actually have a copy of the bylaws that
They are
have.
in here as Exhibit
Right.
11.
Exactly. That might need some attention.
I'm sorry, Exhibit 7.
And what page is that for you?
On this printout, it's page 51.
So it's probably about page 58 for us. I'm going to try that. Okay, I do see it. Yep, I wasn't far off. All right. And Ms. Simmons, you said you're getting outside training help from several different bodies. When's the last time these bylaws have been updated?
I believe it was in 2022. Can
Yeah.
you correct
Yeah.
me?
Yes.
Okay.
So we do have the standard practice of having 2 minutes on every item and general comment as well.
Okay.
The policies and procedures that Amber has been trained on, part of her review and prep of the agenda is to ensure that those public comment times show up on the agenda. And we've also shared those policies and procedures with the chairs to be sure that they practice that. So if we technically need to state that rule in the bylaws, we can do that. But our general practice is absolutely every item gets 2 minutes of public comment.
That's great.
That's not true. That's just a lie. They offer-
Mr. Hillier, we'll get to that later. Now, these notes that I see on these bylaws, are these your notes, Mr. Hillier?
Yes, they are.
Okay, good. All right.
Chair Hyland.
Yes, Victor.
Yes, just taking into account past complaints and future complaints that may be upcoming, maybe a better bet would be to treat these as a training opportunity to take subject matters and try to figure out what should be done in an overall sense and not focus totally on specific meetings. Let's see, what is the complaint overall and what can we do to accommodate and fix those issues, and take it from a training point of view instead of a complaint point of view. That might be more helpful.
That's very creative and positive. I appreciate that input, Victor. That's basically where I was going to go with this. So I'm trying to get an idea of what is the template you guys have and where does it need to get to. And as the EOT for Sunshine, we're happy to help you with that as well as the outside, Robert's rules and different departments that are helping you with this. This is obviously something ongoing. You guys have appeared before us in the past, and you're lucky to have someone as diligent as Mr. Hillier helping you focus your process. So I think that's a very, very positive suggestion. Ms. Simmons, would you be open to something like that? And again, it goes back to my question. Who is responsible for your parliamentary procedures during your meetings? I mean, I guess the buck stops with the chair.
Yep.
Okay. And who is that at this point?
We have co-chairs, Stephen Benuelos, and why can't I think of Commissioner Vehills?
Commissioner Vehil.
Okay. All right. And then back to my question about Mr. Greer. He is consulting, not consulting?
He has moved on to a different position. He has made himself available if we have questions,
Okay.
but we really are moving towards a self-sustaining structure where we don't need to call on Mr.
Okay. And who is in the regular meetings, who is the secretary that, runs the meeting for the commission to make sure that everything is followed correctly? Who's that person?
That would be me.
That would be you. Okay. Great. Okay. So we have the right people on the phone. That's what I wanted to get to the bottom of. All right. Okay. Why don't we move to rebuttals at this stage? Unless Member Hill, you have any further questions?
No further comments, sir.
Okay. So I think my instinct here is to let you guys talk a little bit more, respond to Mr. Hillier's very detailed guidance here, ask for direction. You can respond. I'd like to get this, a little bit more fleshed out. I'd like to get this something that we can send this to the full commission. They can find their violations. That's all great. But if we can use this as a training opportunity to get the commission working correctly, more quickly, rather than getting in the queue for the full task force and going the whole violations route, which we can still do in tandem, that I think would be a win-win for everybody. That's kind of where I'm headed on this. So with that sentiment, both parties, if you'd like to do a 3-minute rebuttal, and I believe Ms. Simmons goes first on this one.
Yeah, I am open to, Amber and I are both open to any kind of technical assistance for us to do better. I do worry about this being a non-ending litany of complaints that come down to us being called to task for typos and technical errors. And we are putting everything in place and given Mr. Hillier's ability to show up, to know where the meetings are, to show up, to make public comment on almost every item. And if there are exceptions and he calls that to attention, we can learn from those. I also would take this opportunity to, if we are going to do this in good faith, that we ask Mr. Hillier to also be in good faith and to stop emailing directly to commissioners' personal emails and to stop harassing may not be the right word, talking to commissioners during meetings and basically leveling threats at them that they're going to have criminal liability for their participation in meetings that we are trying to operate as, with as much ethical and legal standing as we can. We really are trying, and I very much want for Mr. Hillier and the BHC to work collaboratively. And we really need to focus on getting our empty seats filled and helping the commission play its role in overseeing our services. We serve 20,000 of the most vulnerable San Franciscans. We spend $600 million of taxpayer dollars. I think there are more meaningful things we can do than correcting if we make a typo and coming to this body to defend the typo, opposed to just giving us a chance to fix the typo. So I'll stop there.
Okay. Ms. Gray, do you have anything to add? You still have about 50 seconds.
That would be helpful if you could consider, the public could consider sometimes that addressing everybody aggressively can be taken different in different communities. It's not considered safe. So we want you to be safe, and we want all the commissioners to feel safe, and no one to feel personally attacked or violated in their personal space. And you'll have your 3 minutes.
All right. Thank you. Cheryl, let Mr. Hillier know when you're ready.
Ready, Ms. Hillier? Go ahead.
Well, I strongly object to this denial and minimization strategy, this basically saying that I'm complaining about typos. Where is the typo that I'm complaining about? They are bringing stuff outside the scope of this complaint into this hearing to try and screw it up, to try and make me look like some kind of madman. This just isn't appropriate. Putting bylaws in that violate local law is not a typographical error. Okay, the bylaws, the law requires that the bylaws contain certain rules, or other rules contain certain rules, and they refuse and will not do this. And they will not. They're using the same strategy here that they've used in all my other complaints, which is never to respond to anything. They will not cooperate with me. I in the emails I showed that I brought these issues up to them before they committed the violations, and they still committed them. Even within a month or two of me bringing it up, they commit the violation. So it obviously, and these emails are now more than a year old. I've obviously tried all that I can do as far as resolving things informally, and they refuse to do so. So I'm sorry, but I don't think this is going to go anywhere. Now, about the allegations, I have email addresses, and I will use them because I have been informed that from commissioners that they do not receive emails that I send to staff. I've repeatedly had that complaint given to me. And furthermore, I have the right to free speech, and I have the right to ask the Board of Supervisors to dismiss commissioners for official misconduct when they do it. And I will do that, and I will copy the commissioners on those requests. And I have the right to come to the district attorney with allegations of misdemeanors being committed by the commission and its committees and the members thereof. And I will do that, and I will continue to do that, and I will up the pressure as far as I can by complaining through every avenue available, including the Ethics Commission, including the Director of Public Health, as I have been doing, and I will continue to do that at maximum speed. So just get used to it. Back to you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. Member Hill, any final thoughts?
I appreciate the detail, the amount of information that's in the packet, and I think that as I was going through it, it was just difficult for me to try to match up like the specific incidences. Now I'm starting to see, as I appreciate this opportunity to hear some of the testimonies, so I can try to sort of put one and one together, this exhibit with this complaint, this exhibit and that, and try to understand I'm reading the here's the bylaw that. So, I think for me, and I don't know where this falls, because there are a number of allegations and that I want to take seriously. I just need a map, a little bit. It really would be helpful, and I just don't know where that falls, Chair Hyland. I attempted to read this twice, and it was difficult for and I'm a logical thinker. So that it would just be really helpful if I could have a map of this is the allegation, this is when it happened. If we're referencing a bylaw, then there needs to be a clear way that I can get to that exhibit without having to search a 100-page document to do that. So I guess my question to you, Chair Hyland, is how do we make this discernible?
Yeah, that's a fair question, and
so that we can fairly adjudicate this.
Right. So there's just so much packed in here. So I think as a first step, I want to get the summary correct on our end, and I might throw this back to our clerks to start with the summary that lays out that these violations, maybe even just a table, on May 18th, these are the allegations. On the next date, these allegations, etc. That's a good start, because that then gives you immediately an idea of the depth and the breadth of this. Because ultimately, when this goes to the full task force, we're going to look at it as we have in the past by sections of the SOTF code, right? And it's almost like there's 5 complaints packed into one here. And, you know, we handled some of this on the consent agenda a year ago with the understanding and with the hope that BHC would rapidly improve its processes. These allegations pick up right where we left off on April of 2022, showing that perhaps that's not happening. And so, you know, I think Mr. Hillier is correct in shining his light on this. And, you know, I know they're asking for a second chance, but guess what? Already been there, done that. So we really need some, you know, some communication and maybe a collaborative work with the chair of this committee and the person that ultimately is responsible for making sure that these procedures are carried out correctly, meeting in, meeting out, noticing of meetings, you know, all the different litany of things that are listed here. Because this is, you know, this is the law. This is the part of what we do to enforce it. So, you know, I'd like to approach this much more as a learning experience. And I will acknowledge there's been a lot of change of personnel over there. You know, you're not the only commission that's going through that. And it's hard when, you know, someone builds a certain amount of institutional knowledge, then leaves, and we start all over again, and all the violations increase, etc. So this is, you're not the only department that's going through this. So I think on that note, I'm going to continue this to the call of the chair. I'm going to start with a request to our admins to look at the allegation more closely, right on page 2 of our packet. Give us a detailed summary based on that. Meanwhile, Ms. Simmons, if you would like to look at that allegation and not the summary, and there's some detail in there, maybe start responding to those pieces. And it could be as simple as, you're right, we messed up, we didn't do it right. This is what we're going to do in response. You know, here's our new training manual. Here's our new bylaws that's addressing exactly these things. Here's our new procedures in meetings. That would be a great start, because ultimately that's what the full task force will most likely ask from you when you do appear in front of them. Member Hill, any other thoughts?
Thank you, Chair Holly. And again, I would just reiterate that if there's information that's relevant to the allegation, that we know where that information is. You know, otherwise, I'm reading 100 pages of handwriting that I don't understand, and I'm not exactly sure sometimes if it's relevant to a particular allegation. You know, so but we've got to have a map of each of the allegations and be able to directly go to the specific example of where what rule is being broken, with that specific example, so that you know, I'm not having to decipher words like carrier pigeon to understand that that's not relevant to the conversation. So, and again, I don't know where this falls, but I just really I would love to be able to understand each one of these. It's just really difficult to do in the format that it's been given.
Yeah, great. It's very lawyerly and scholarly. But on page 11 of our packet, Member Hill, he starts with the, you know, okay, having dealt with jurisdiction here we go on the violation. So that's the meat of it. I would, Mr. Hillier, I would love to see that put in a table. It'd be great. And if that's too much to ask, I don't know if your brain works that way. I see you've got the detail in here, but can you go backwards? I don't know if that's something that might help us all work off something. And, you know, they can specifically say, oh, okay, this, and what's that one? I mean, just to, you know, because it is hard for, you know, us who are non-paid staff, paid staff, to kind of go through all this. And by the time we work it all out, years go by. So something that would help, you know, as Member Hill said, a roadmap. You know, if you could just get each of those points into just one line, this date, these violations, this date, these, that, and that would be a start. And I would have our admins put that right at the top, along with your index of records and our revamped summary. And then the full task force can look at this and make some sense out of it. Is that fair?
I can do that.
Okay, that'd be very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hillier.
So I'm going to make a motion to continue to call the chair. I'm going to ask, I've already asked our admins to work on certain things. Mr. Hillier is going to work on certain things. And Ms. Simmons, I would expect some responses from you, perhaps after Mr. Hillier has codified this in a table. Would that be fair?
If we can understand what we're responding to, that would definitely help.
Okay, and add to that, you know, we'd like to see something at SOTF, and I'm projecting here what the full task force might say, of, you know, your bylaws were updated in 2022, but maybe flesh out the meeting bylaws a little bit more, and really encapsulate what the law requires in there, or some corrections based on this information. That would be very helpful.
And do you recommend we spend city resources to have the city attorney advise us on that, or is that something that we could get support from all of you?
That you can ask us, but that's always your privilege to do that, and I'm sure they'll advise you well on, you know, staying within the confines or staying within the requirements of the law. That's really what they should be advising you on.
The city
Sometimes
attorney did
Mr.
pass
Hillier
on
and
this.
the city attorney have different opinions.
Yeah, we're aware of that, and we don't always agree with them either. We don't always agree with Good Government Guide. You know, we answer to a higher level, I think, or I like to think. So anyhow, so hopefully this is the beginning of a collaborative process, a learning process, as our administrator mentioned. Because at the end of the day, it would be nice if the meetings are run smoothly with all the boxes checked, and not have to hear complaints like this.
And if I may, Ms. Simmons, you were mentioning like getting seats filled? Are you not meeting right now because you don't have quorum, or are you meeting?
We have not had quorum the last 2 regular meetings, and the committees have been hit or miss. We have 7 or 8 vacancies right now. We are working to do outreach to the Board of Supervisors, who are supposed to appoint the members. And we need to focus on having a robust onboarding for them, which includes the training of these rules. And kind of the overall operations. But I will tell you, I spend at least 2 hours a week reviewing and responding to Mr. Hillier's questions and comments. There's many more beyond what this body sees.
Some of these are repeated.
I feel like that it might, what I'm getting at is that it might be an opportunity, like if we aren't getting quorum and you're not meeting, which, you know, again, you know, like if we're not getting, you know, if we're not getting agendas up in time, and we're, you know, then like we will follow the rules, like we don't have the meetings if, you know, if the rules aren't being followed. But I guess what I'm getting at is that this might be an opportunity that like we might have an opportunity to take a look at specifically some of the aspects of what Mr. Hillier is drawing attention to, and taking some time, now to make sure that we are addressing them if it will help make sure that we're running open and transparent meetings moving forward. So I do understand and can empathize with the fact that you're probably hard at work trying to get active, your membership active so that you can have meetings. But it might also be a really good time for us to work together to address some of these issues, so that when you are meeting again, that will be in compliance.
Yes, and we have submitted multiple documents outlining steps that we've taken that I feel like aren't really on exhibit here. And so I just want to reassure this body that we are, in fact, making a lot of efforts and have made vast improvements in both
and maybe
the whole round of issues that came up the last complaint. I think other than an exceptional time where there was some kind of error or miscommunication, we are posting things on time. We are having public comment at every meeting. There are a lot of disagreements between the city attorney and Mr. Hillier about the return to in-person meetings and the protocols for that, which we've struggled with a little bit. But outside of that, we have made vast improvements. And so I just want, in our defense, I totally support the mission. I just want you to know this is not like we've not made efforts.
This could be an opportunity, though, if there have been changes since this complaint has been filed, to what has been commented on before. It will be very helpful for you to also provide us with a map that addresses each allegation. And if there have been some positive movement on them, it would really be helpful for me to, I don't have context of that unless I see something on paper, so it would really just help expedite all of this if we had just a much clearer understanding. If with all the if you are putting in the hard work, please take a moment and address that in written communication, so that we don't have to try to guess at it, and I say that with all due respect and out of respect to the fact that I know that you're working very hard. It sounds like that you are working hard to get there. Would that be a fair ask?
Absolutely. And so I'm understanding we'll have a table for Mr. Hillier that we can then respond to. I think there's definitely opportunity to revisit bylaws with the group, and I think resubmitting to all of you kind of the policies and procedures we put in place and the tracking log that shows when we're posting agenda items, because none of those things were in place the last time we came before this, and maybe not the last meeting, but the last complaint when that was filed, we didn't have those
April of 2022, right?
Interventions in place. And I continue to want Mr. Hillier to know that we do want to work with him and we do want to be good. And we really got to get more members appointed so we can have meetings and do meaningful work.
Great. I'm going to give Mr. Hillier a couple of minutes. If you want to, anything you want to just closing, since I've given Ms. Simmons some time, and then I'm going to make a motion.
Thank you. Yes, I would like to speak. I really would just like to say, as a procedural matter, if Ms. Simmons, you could limit your comments to the matters that are in the complaint, because these are not complaints. This complaint does not talk about not posting things on time. Okay, that was the order of April 6th of last year. That is a different complaint, and I take great care to put these things in separate silos so that it'll all be neat and clean. We can focus on the issues at hand. So stop bringing other issues into this, and because I feel compelled to respond. As regards quorum, when I signed in, when I came to the meeting, I saw Lisa Wynn's name on the sign-in sheet log for the building. She was not there at the meeting in time. But she was there even before I showed up, even before the meeting started, according to that log. And so what that tells me is she was hanging out in the women's bathroom and waiting for you to wait half an hour to see if you could get quorum and then call the meeting and then show up and act like she couldn't find parking. That's a lie. She was there. You would have had quorum. There was a quorum at that meeting. This is all made up bullshit. Back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Hillier. All right, I'm going to make a motion to continue this to the call of the chair. In the interim, I would like our administrators to restate the summary with particular attention to the allegations. Mr. Hillier has promised us a table with dates and corresponding SOTF codes. Ms. Simmons has promised us a response to that, as well as some documents on changes they've made since April of 2022 to their meeting procedures, bylaws, noticing, etc. And we will bring this back to this subcommittee to look at before we forward to the full task force. And then also we do find jurisdiction. That's I guess the second part of this.
I'll second the motion to continue and find jurisdiction.
Thank you. All right. Are there any members of the public who'd like to make public comment on this motion? I see none in the room approaching the dais.
We have two other people online with us. If you'd like to make public comment at this time, you can raise your hand by using the application. I'll give you a few moments. I don't see any indication for additional public comment.
All right, Cheryl, when you're ready, you take the roll.
Chair Hyland.
Aye.
Chair Hyland, aye. Member Hill.
Aye.
Member Hill, aye. Moved by Chair Hyland, seconded by Member Hill to continue the matter to the call of the chair, requesting that the administrators restate the summary, and that Mr. Hillier has promised dates and the task force codes, and Ms. Simmons has promised documents noting changes to their meetings, bylaws, and will bring back to the Education Outreach and Training Committee before forwarding to the task force. They also find jurisdiction and that the records are public. Is that correct?
Very good. All right. Thank you, BHC members. Thank you, Mr. Hillier. All right. When you're ready, Cheryl, we can read the next.
We didn't have public comment for that motion, did we?
We did. We took public comment. There was none.
Chair Hyland.
Oh, I'm sorry. Wait.
That's what I was wondering.
No, we took public comment and there was no one in the room and no one put their hand up for Victor. So there was no public comment. Yeah. So we did do public comment. Yes, Member Hill.
Chair Hyland, I just Madam Clerk, real quick. That last part that said that the records are public, I'm not sure that that's relative to this particular.
Yeah, it's not about records. So strike that, please, Cheryl. In fact, when you restate it, if you could say, we find jurisdiction and we continue it, that would be the correct order, because I should have addressed that first.
Okay.
Thank you, Member Hill. Good catch.
Just adjusting my motion here. Okay. We ready for the next item?
We are.
All right. Item number 5, file number 23020, complaint filed by Paul, I hope I say this correctly, Niha, against the San Francisco Municipal Transportation Agency for allegedly violating Administrative Code Section 6725 by failing to respond to an immediate disclosure request in a timely and or complete manner.
All right.
Good afternoon. Sorry, is that my time to speak?
Yes, I was just going to ask if the plaintiff and the respondent are in the room, but it sounds like you're online virtual.
I am online virtual, yes.
Okay, if you could identify yourself.
Yes, my name is Paul, and my last name is pronounced Kniha, and I would like to point out that it is also misspelled in the memorandum. So
Okay.
it's supposed to be Kilo November India Hotel Alpha, Kniha. It's pronounced Kniha.
Okay, if you can make note of that, Cheryl, please. Apologies for that.
Sir, did you say
Oh, no.
Kniha?
Correct.
All right.
All right. Okay. And do we have a respondent? Anyone with SFMTA here? I don't see anyone in the room. Victor, anybody online?
I think Ms. Salai is online.
Can you see her there?
She's-
Can you unmute her?
Hank Wilson from SFMTA.
Ah, okay. I'm sorry. Who is that?
Hank Wilson.
Hank Wilson. All right. Thank you, Hank. All right. Welcome, both of you. All right. And Paul, could you pronounce your name for us one more time?
Sure, it's Kniha.
Kaniha. Okay.
Yeah, you make your best effort to pronounce all the letters.
I got it this time. Kaniha. All right.
Yeah, there we go. You got it perfect.
Okay. All right. Cheryl, let Mr. Kaniha know when you're ready, and you'll have 5 minutes to present a summary of the case, and then pretty much, along the lines of the last case, that's our procedure.
Sounds good.
Mr. Kniha, are you ready to begin?
Yes, I am.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much, Ms. Litter. Good afternoon, everybody. Chair Highland, Member Hill. On October 24th, 2022, my wife had a surgery that made her unable to walk without assistance and lift heavy items. At the same time, our family was caring for a 1-year-old and a 5-year-old. Because of that, I was on my intermittent paternity leave that started in November 2021 during the pandemic, and during which I worked part-time from home as mandated by health officials. During my paternity leave, I was approved by my management to work part-time, which exempt me from the in-office requirement per FAQ published and circulated by SFMTA HR. By the time it started my leave, it had been over 2 years since the service technician for the program that I managed had retired, and the agency failed to hire the replacement. In order for me to keep the program from shutting down while on paternity leave and before the in-office requirement became implemented, I have been coming to the office for a week every month to do the job of the survey technician. During those weeks, I usually worked about 9 to 10 hours a day and the weekends without extra pay. It is important to underline that I was coming to the office to do the job of the survey technician that the SFMTA failed to hire. So the time of the surgery, I was on my paternity leave, and my wife's doctor gave me a note excusing me from work through November 27th. However, I had my obligation to the agency and to the public, and I continued to work part-time as much as I could, often nights and weekends, almost every day. Instead of recognizing my efforts and thanking me and supporting my extraordinary efforts to maintain the operation of the program while taking care of my sick wife and minor children, Hank Wilson, Ted Graff, Leanne Nunn, and Monique Johnson, through multiple emails, phone calls, in-person and online meetings, conspired a plot to fire me. They decided to take advantage of my family's vulnerable situation, and knowing how hard it would be for us, required that instead of coming to the office for the whole week every month to do the job of the survey technician, they, under threat of discipline, told me that I must leave my sick wife and minor children and come to the office at least 3 times a week to work part-time. Let me remind you, this is while I'm operating, this is why I'm on my paternity leave and with the doctor's note. On November 2nd, 2022, Monique Johnson sent an email to Hank, Ted, and Leanne, where, among other things, she asked, are there any documented complaints regarding Paul's unavailability during the 3 weeks out of the months he has been off-site since this all started? Not knowing the answer to that question yet, she also stated in the same email, Hank, if the employee fails to comply with the requirement to report to work as instructed, please document and initiate progressive discipline. Same day, Hank responded to Monique, among other response to her question. Note that Paul has been working either 100% from home or only 1 week per month in the office since the initial back to the office date of November 1, 2021. So for more than a year now, I don't have any specific complaints from anyone outside of the agency, though issues have arisen that could, at least in part, be attributed to the fact that he isn't able to work in person. There has been a complaint from another team member. For the context, during my paternity leave and prior to that, I have never received any complaints about my work. Actually, the opposite was happening. I received numerous thank you messages praising my hard work and the fact that the program continued to provide services to the public without a delay during the pandemic and in absence of the Service Commission. On nearly all of my work evaluation reports, my manager, Hank, stated that I have been exceeding the expectation. That is why on January 5th, 2023, I submitted a sunshine request asking to provide all records available regarding the complaint, including but not limited to the original complaint, the response, and all subsequent communication between Hank Wilson, the person who submitted the complaint, and all the people received, forwarded, otherwise handled the complaint, including emails, typed written notes, chat messages, and meeting notes from all meetings where the complaint have been discussed. On January 13th, the SFMTA has responded. After reviewing our records, the SFMTA has determined that the agency does not have any records responsive to your request and closed the case. In other words, Hank claims that there was a complaint against an employee from a team member serious enough to be considered a reason for a, quote, progressive discipline, but all possible records of it have magically disappeared. As you can see from the evidence presented, Hank and Monique have strong reasons to hide the information from the disclosure and thus violated the Administrative Code Sunshine Ordinance Section 67.25 by failing to respond to an immediate disclosure request in a timely or complete manner.
Thank you, Mr. Kaniha. Is there anybody here providing evidence in support of the petitioner? I don't see anyone in the room. Victor, anybody online?
We have nobody else online with us.
Okay. All right. Okay. Respondent, Mr. Hank Wilson, was it? Cheryl will let you know when she's ready.
Are you ready to begin, sir? Mr. Wilson?
Give him a second to unmute. Victor, you said no one was online, so Mr. Wilson dropped off?
No, I see him now.
Ah, okay.
Mr.
They're
Wilson?
just muted.
There you go. Okay, we can hear you now.
No, I'm sorry. This is Member Hill. I was just saying
Oh.
that Hank Wilson is muted.
Oh, you can see that?
I'm not seeing. Oh, give me a moment. I think I need to refresh my screen. It's not showing everyone I have.
He says he can't unmute himself.
I do see.
Here it goes.
I do-
My apologies. My screen was not refreshed, and I didn't see him.
okay. I also see Miss Celaya on there as well. So
Hi, this is Hank Wilson. Can you hear me now?
we can.
We can. Mr. Wilson, are you ready to begin speaking?
I am. Thanks.
Go ahead, sir.
So, thank you, commissioners, for the time. My name is Hank Wilson. I am the parking policy manager at the SFMTA. Mr. Kania talked a lot about the kind of background and last couple of years of our interactions and the lead up to his release, which I don't think really have a lot to do with this particular complaint. In fact, I will note that the two complaints that are being heard today are really about the same public records request, which is Mr. Kaniha's request for records about this complaint. And I don't have anything to add beyond what has already been submitted by Ms. Celaya in response to Mr. Kaniha's public records request, which is that nothing is being provided, no records are being provided, and the basis for withholding is the official information. The official information privilege permits departments to shield from disclosure records of an ongoing investigation where the investigation has been undertaken with an understanding or under established procedures that witness statements and other evidence will be treated as confidential. See generally California Evidence Code Section 1040. So that's true. We have not provided any records. That's the basis for withholding, and I don't have anything to add beyond that.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Celaya, is there anything you'd like to add? You guys still have some time?
I can't unmute.
Okay, we hear you now. We do hear you now.
Okay. I believe that Mr. Nihad mentioned that our response said that we didn't have any records, that there were no responsive records. And I'd just like to point out that there have been numerous public records requests from Mr. Nihad, so there may have been some confusion in that when I initially responded to this, that there were no records. The response should have been that the records were withheld. So I just wanted to make that one point. And that's it. That's all I have to add.
Okay, thank you. Is anyone here speaking on behalf of the respondents? I don't see anyone online, and no one in the room is doing so. So, okay, the matter is before us. I had a quick question for Mr. Wilson. Could you cite that code for withholding again? I caught 1040.
They're citing evidence code Article 9, Section 1040. It's Division 8, Chapter 4, Article 9, Section 1040.
All right, I need a minute to read that. That reads pretty general to me. What do you think, Mr. Member Hill?
I was personally having a difficult time applying that to this particular records request.
Yeah, usually this is a very general. We usually get much, we get, California code.
Right, and sometimes it'll have to do with things under litigation. Is there something under? Is there ongoing litigation?
Right. This looks like looks like it's under evidence code, which is not the case here. So, Mr.
Right.
Wilson, if you could explain your use of that section for withholding a little bit more fully for the subcommittee here, we'd appreciate that.
They'll need to be unmuted.
Okay, give me a second. My apologies. There's been some kind of update to the system, and once I unmute a person, they should have control over their own microphone, but it seems to
Keeps muting them again.
little glitches here and there.
It's possible they're muting themselves once they're done talking. So, but how do they unmute?
Mr. Wilson is unmuted.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
We can, yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think when I mute myself, then the lock goes back down on the mute and I can't unmute myself. So, I apologize. I don't have much to add to that statement that's already been provided. This was, sort of similar to Ms. Simmons in the last item. We're going off of the advice of the city attorney. So that's the advice that they provided to us. That's the advice that we have passed along. And again, to Ms. Celaya's point, we did do a search for records in response to this, and we've done really extensive searches in response to the several dozen public records requests that Mr. Kaniha has sent in the last few months, and I think spent dozens and maybe hundreds of hours of staff time in providing thousands and thousands of documents in response to his requests. But this one, the city attorney advised there's an ongoing investigation, and so records should not be produced.
Okay, so what is the ongoing investigation? Does it Does it involve Mr. Kaniha or, that's what I'm trying to get a little bit more information on.
I don't know.
Because you're citing that, but then you're not really providing much more than just citing it. So, you need to do a little bit better than that for us.
Understood. I don't know what, if any, investigation is happening. I don't have any information or knowledge about it myself.
Ms. Salaya, is there anything you'd like to add? And Mr. Wilson, I'm sorry, tell me your position again at MTA, your title.
I'm the parking policy manager.
Which means what exactly?
Which means that, so I work in the streets division, which is essentially
where Mr. Kaniha was employed. Got it.
Right.
Okay.
So in the streets division of the SFMTA, which is the Department of Transportation, we regulate the streets and the parking. And I report to the Director of Parking and Operations, who reports to the Director of the Streets Division, and then the Director of the Streets Division reports to Jeff Tumlin, who's the Director of the agency.
Got it. Okay. And Ms. Salaya is the manager of public records request. All right. Okay. So I will tell you that when we forward this to the full task force, they're going to dive into this at great length. So you may want to bring someone who is knowledgeable on that ongoing investigation to talk about that, because on face value, this is not enough for withholding in my book. So if there's something you'd like to add at this juncture, that's great.
Good.
Caroline, so what we were told by our city attorneys is that the basis for withholding the official information privilege, it permits the departments to shield from disclosure records of an ongoing investigation where the investigation has been undertaken with an understanding or under established procedures that witness statements and other evidence will be treated as confidential.
Right. I'm reading that in the record here too. But is that investigation still ongoing?
I don't know, because as far as I know, Mr. Neha is no longer an employee, so I don't know that the investigation is still ongoing. At the time that he made this request, it was, and that's why records were not produced.
Okay. If he were to make that request now?
I would have to consult with our city attorneys to determine if that would be something we could disclose. Even if the investigation is closed, I don't know if we still can or not. I'd have to consult with our city attorneys.
All right, because I'm sure he has other avenues that he'd like to take with this case, and part of it, from what I understand, he needs is to get this information. So we're going to do our best to help him under the confines of the law. Mr. Wilson, you had something to add?
Sure. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I did want to. I would note, I don't know what your plan is for the next item, which is, like I said, I think essentially based on the same public records request and has the same response. I don't remember. I think that one, I think it's 23036, may have come in after Mr. Kaniha was no longer an employee. So I think Ms. Salaya is right that we should check with the city attorney, but I'm not sure that the response from the city attorney changed on that basis. But I also, I don't know if it's appropriate, or I could ask it as a question, but if it's not appropriate to ask this body a question, you can take it as a comment or something for when the full task force meets. But I think that one of the challenges is that questions about the investigation, if there is one, and it's very challenging for us to answer any questions about the investigation without revealing the information that is specifically we've been advised is privileged or is not to be disclosed.
Right.
So, any question like who's conducting it, what's being discussed, is it ongoing? Answering any of those questions to me seems like it's then going to reveal things that are not supposed to be disclosed and are supposed to be confidential. So I think
I thank you for that, and that's a good point. I understand that, but there's also a that on the other side of the coin, we've had bodies. First of all, you said there was no responsive records, and that was incorrect. There were responsive records. Then you have to cite the withholding, which you've done. In many cases, you should also probably provide redacted documents, even though that might involve redacting almost everything to not, jeopardize the investigation. But those are steps that other departments have taken. In fact, your department has taken in the 12 years that I've been sitting here listening to MTA cases. So I'm not satisfied with your responses or the assistance you provided this petitioner. And, we'll get to more of that in the next case. But I imagine my thoughts are probably going to be echoed by the full task force as well. So, yes, you may very well want to talk to your DCA about, the proper procedures for responding to this, the withholding citations, as well as the producing of documents with redactions. That's just my initial take. But
may I, thank you.
Enough for me.
One quick thing. Sorry, just to clarify, I believe it was Mr. Kaniha who said that we didn't have any responsive documents, and I think Ms. Zelaya was trying to clarify that is not the case. That we did a search and we are not producing records because of this official information privilege. So just want to clarify.
That's my mistake then. I misunderstood that. Okay. Mr. Kaniha, I'm going to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit too. But before that, Member Hill, is there anything you'd like to ask or add, or perhaps you might want to ask Mr. Kaniha something?
I guess to Mr. Kaniha, it does say here that the withholding of the records are specifically, it says under established procedures that witness statements and other evidence will be treated as confidential. When you read that, Mr. Kaniha, does that ring a bell for you? And do you believe that do you believe in your mind that there might be that there might be witness statements or other evidence that would be treated confidential, but that in your mind that there is other information that you would have expected? I'm just wondering if that justification makes any sense to you.
Thank you, Member Hill. I think it would be best for me to answer that question once we move on to the second item, because like Mr. Wilson mentioned, those items are related, and the second sunshine request that was submitted basically in conjunction with the response that I received to the first.
Mr. Chair.
Is that answering your question, or would you like me to go into more in depth?
If we're going to get into it later, then that's fine.
I think in the interest of time, I think it's better if we just do it once we get to the second question.
And then I would just say it in support. Oh, okay, then I understand. And I would just say in support of what what Chair Holland mentioned, that if you are pointing out that there are witness statements or evidence that's treated as confidential, then part of the way that it can be proven to this subcommittee that there is in fact an investigation outside of just saying that there is one, is to provide redacted information back to them, because that would help justify. It would actually help further justify this statement that there are witness statements and other evidence that need to be treated as confidential.
Right. It would establish that there was a paper trail of things that led to the action. And just to be clear, Mr. Kaniha, it's not our purview to discuss, whether or not you should have been terminated. But I think you appreciate that. But what we can do is help you get to the root of the documents that were in that trail that caused that action. That we can help you with. And that's what we're trying to focus in on here. So I think I'm going to go to rebuttals on this one, if there are any. But it sounds like both parties are ready to move on to the next case, which I think might help unravel this a little bit further.
Mr. Chair, may I make a suggestion?
Sure, Victor, go ahead.
If you want to call the next item and leave item 5 open, just so you're not complying.
Right. Yeah. And actually, I wish I called them together, but it sounds like both the petitioner and the respondent are okay with us doing that and getting into the, to the heart of this matter. Would you be open to me calling the next item and continuing down this path?
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Kaniha?
That's fine with me. This is Hank Wilson.
Okay, great.
Sure, if
Okay.
you don't mind, I'll go ahead and read the item because I do want to make one comment before you get into it.
All right.
Number 6, file number 23036, complaint filed by Paul Kaniha against the San Francisco Municipal Transportation Agency for allegedly violating Administrative Code Section 67.10B by failing to consider the appointment, evaluation of performance, or dismissal of a city employee. I just want to note that 67.10 is regarding policy body's ability to hold closed session meetings, and it may be taken out of context in this case.
1 second.
I had the same concern.
Down.
My PDF is still opening. Bear with me.
It's okay. What I will say is I had the same concern that 67.10B is it gives public bodies a justification for holding closed session due to having conversations about employment, evaluation, dismissal, etc. So I was definitely confused by that reference.
Okay, I just want to make sure that Mr. Kaniha referenced that, and that wasn't our.
Yeah, I'm also double checking that as well.
So, Mr. Kaniha, in the summary of this case, are you quoting that section 6710?
I don't have it in front of me, so I admit that I may have made a mistake, and we can take a closer look at it.
Okay, we can get into it when we get into the hearing. I'm looking at your original letter to Cheryl here, section 10B, section 10B. Okay, give us 1 minute. 6710B. So I see your letter to MTA March 22nd, 2023. Okay, this is forwarded from you to Cheryl, I think. Okay, this is a request to schedule the following items for a hearing under Section 10B for alleged violations by city officers and employees other than elected officials, department heads, and non-willful violations by elected officials or the department heads.
I may have quoted incorrect code, but I was actually alleging the same violation as the previous. At least that was my intention. Maybe I made a mistake. So instead of 67.10B, I probably meant 67.25. Good
fine. Yeah. And that's why, at the subcommittee level, we'll catch those things and change it.
Awesome.
Good catch, Victor. Thank you for that. Okay, let's proceed. Mr. Kaniha, you have 5 minutes. You don't have to use all of it since we've heard quite a lot about this already, but we'll just follow the procedure here. You have 5 minutes to tell us about this particular item. Cheryl, let Mr. Kaniha know when you're ready.
Yeah. Are you ready?
I am.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you very much. All right. So for the record, I have the original request that was submitted on this matter, the one that we discussed in the previous matter. The request was 23.78, and it says that it was closed. And the official comment that it has, after reviewing our records, the subcommittee has determined that the agency does not have any records responsive to your request. please do not hesitate to contact us. So that's the official response from the agency. And on January 24th, I have reached out to the Sunshine Administrator, Cheryl Ledger, asking to file a complaint against the SFMTA. And this is then I received an email on March 7th, 2023, from Caroline that said, staff informs me that the records were withheld for the following reason. I continue the quote. Basis for withholding the official information privilege permits department to shield from disclosure records on an ongoing investigation where investigation has been undertaken with an understanding or under established procedures that witness statement or other evidence will be treated as confidential. See generally call evidence code, paragraph 1040, end of quote. That seemed very suspicious to me because the alleged complaint took place at least prior to November 2nd, 2022, when the email was sent. And there was no investigation started back then, at least that I was aware of, nor there was any mentioning of any investigation in response to my original request. I will quote again the response they received in February. Yeah, so basically I just quoted the response that I received on January 13th. And for those reasons, I had all reasons to believe that investigation was a made-up excuse in order to justify refusal to disclose the public information. So on March 7th, I submitted Sunshine Request 231253, requesting the following. This is a request to provide all materials related to the investigation that may contain answers to the following questions. Who and when commenced the investigation, what entities or persons are conducting it, when is it expected to be completed, and what kind of reporting will be generated as the result. While the materials and findings of the investigations are shielded from the disclosure, the questions above are not. On March 21st, 2023, the SFMTA has closed the case with a comment, responsive records are exempt on the basis of previously cited official information privilege called evidence code, paragraph 1040, end of quote. To this date, there was no documents related to the alleged complaint. There was no explanation who and when started the alleged investigation, when it will be complete, whether it is still ongoing, and when the results will be provided. In my opinion, I have presented enough evidence to support the claim that SFMTA illegally withheld the information from disclosure and thus violated the Administrative Code, Sunshine Ordinance, Section 67.25 by failing to respond to immediate disclosure request in a timely and complete manner. That's all for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody here to speak on behalf of the petitioner? I don't see anybody in the room. And I don't see anybody online other than those already in the case. All right. Mr. Wilson, would you like to respond? You have up to 5 minutes. Cheryl, let him know when you're ready.
Are you ready, Mr. Wilson?
I am. Thank you.
Go ahead, sir.
Thanks again, commissioners. I don't have a lot to add in addition to what I already said on the previous item. Same basis for withholding. Mr. Kaniha did raise the issue, and I think it's a good point that I think the initial response said something along the lines of no records, and then a later response said records are being withheld based on this evidence code section 1040. And that is, Mr. Kaniha, I think, is attributing some sort of nefarious intent. There wasn't any, like I said, there was a search conducted in response to 2378. There was a search conducted in response to the, I think it's 231253, that followed up based on the same public records request, and records that were found by that search were withheld per this privilege. So apologies, I suppose, for the wording in response to the first one. I think part of this is that I have not, and a lot of us haven't dealt with this volume of public records requests in the past and are not completely up on all of the right terminology. But the response to both is the same, and a search was conducted. So just want to make that clear.
Thank you. Anything else, Mr. Wilson?
No, that's all. Thanks.
All right. Ms. Celaya, anything you'd like to add in the time allotted? Maybe she's trying to unmute, but I'm guessing that's a no. You can always jump in at this point if you want to. Okay. The matter is before us. So I don't know about you, Member Hill, but we'll not getting into the merits of this. I think the full task force would be curious to see at least some documents with some redactions.
Agree.
It sounds like there is something there, and I think just a blanket, denial based on the DCA's advice is not going to cut it.
No, I would tend to agree. I think that's actually probably what makes this feel suspicious, if at all, is just because the use of this sort of blanket withholding due to an investigation, but not being able to actually give any sort of evidence that there is actually an investigation. Whereas the first request is around like specific records, the second one is around answering specific questions, and so it shouldn't have to really do with and necessarily with the search for public records and those records being confidential. It was along the lines of the similar question that I have of I believe it's upon SFMTA to provide evidence that supports their use of that particular state code. And I think that I can tell that that's the heart of the intent of the second petition, is to just understand. So I would love to know if that information can be shared, and if not, then what information can be that provides proof.
Agreed. Yeah, if nothing else, the paper trail of, which person initiated the procedure. You can strike everything out. What happened next? Where did it go to HR? What happened next? Without compromising the privilege. A heavily redacted paper trail should, at the very least, be available, I think, and that might be enough for Mr. Kaniha to use, further down the road in the legislative system and courts, if that's where he's headed. And we have done this before and ruled on very similar cases against the MTA about 8 years ago. So this is ringing a bell for me.
I know sometimes it can feel like a lot of work, but actually striking through is a fairly simple task.
Right, especially if, as it seems, documents do exist or even must exist, right, for the actions that they took, which again is not our purview, but yeah, they're not saying they don't exist. They're saying they exist, however. So it's the however that we're going to debate at the full task force. So, we can hear rebuttals here in a second, but I think my instinct is to find jurisdiction, refer this to the full task force, and also have our DCA take a crack at Evidence Code 1040. I would like to have that in place as a privileged communication to us before the full task force hears this. So that's my motion, but I'll make it formally after rebuttals. So, Mr. Wilson, you would go first with rebuttals. If there's anything you'd like to say, especially in view of what our position might be on this, feel free to do so. You have 3 minutes. Cheryl will let you know when she's ready.
Are you ready, sir?
I am. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Thanks again for the time and for the thoughtful consideration. The only thing I would want to add in rebuttal, and this is repeating what I said in regarding the previous item, is that, again, I think the challenge would be that revealing anything about the investigation is inherently revealing something that is not supposed to be revealed, that was intended to be confidential. So I think that's just sort of the challenge in the where we may find ourselves in a little bit of a quandary, but I look forward to discussing it more. So thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. Ms. Celaya, any final thoughts? I'm hearing none. Mr. Kaniha, you have up to 3 minutes to rebut.
Are you ready?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your consideration. I do want to kind of echo what has been said earlier. I do want to point out that those cases are separate for a reason, because although they once started from another, there were two essentially different disclosure requests. One was about the merits of the complaint and the paper trail about the complaint itself, and the SFMTA only took position that this is supposedly shielded several weeks after I have reached out to Sunshine Administrator to submit this case to be brought up in front of this hearing, and it seems like a very dangerous loophole that a public agency can just use a blanket excuse quoting a evidence code, and if this is the case, then anything for any public disclosure, an agency would be able to just say, oh, it's under investigation now. We're not going to give you the details of the investigation. So that was my second disclosure request, was to provide the details about the investigation itself. I don't, if you claim that this is a privileged information, we can look into it in separate venues, including venues like this one. However, as a separate matter, it is. I was interested in finding out again who started the investigation, who was working on it, and when is expected to be done, and whether it is still ongoing. And that information cannot be withheld by just hiding against this evidence code, because it's not about the evidence; it's about the investigation. I don't need to know the merits and the details of the investigation itself, if it is indeed a protected information. But the general information which started, when it's supposed to be completed, and the findings of the investigation are supposed to be public information. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kaniha. Member Hilton, perhaps you can help me out here.
If I may, I don't know if this is this feels more like Section 6726, a withholding kept to a minimum situation. No record shall be withheld from disclosure in its entirety unless all information contained in it is exempt from disclosure. And then specifically, it goes into that the work should be done personally by the attorney, and that they should keynote, footnote, each different redaction. So I don't know if that is something that can be included in the motion, or is that just something that we would discuss when we take it up with the full board?
Sure. In fact, I was going to have you do the motion, so you can definitely add that to it, and I think it's pertinent.
I will make a motion to find that.
Before you do that, I just want to let's investigate 6725.
Yes.
Was it timely, their response? And
oh, correct. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think I'm not sure if it was. I have to go back and look at that. So our recommendations might be 6725 and 26, and then you can cite the specific code after that. But I'm guessing it wasn't timely because there's some back and forth, like no records. Oh, by the way, there are records, but we can't give them to you. So to me, it wasn't. And again, there's two different cases here, so we could probably use some help from Victor how to package this, whether we want to hear whether we recommend combining them and sending them to the task force with recommendations for 25 and 26. That's probably a good way of doing this. Or because the first one establishes the second one, so I think they need to hear these together, and in the interests of efficiency. Victor, any thoughts on that?
Well, no matter what, item 6 will need to be amended because they just mentioned the wrong code. Maybe we can just.
Oh, we could put in the right code. That doesn't matter. I mean, that's okay. That's why we're here. So we can certainly do that. But
maybe it can be at the discretion of, not the discretion, but maybe we can get the agreement of the parties to amend one of the complaints to reference both issues.
Well, we can recommend combining the items for the full task force. That we can do, and then we can also recommend the violations that they can key in on. That dispenses with everything, right? But it'd be good to put some summary in there between case 1 and case 2, saying at the very least, and really focus on case 2 for 6726. In that, withholding should have been indexed and referenced, and we feel documents should have been produced, heavily redacted, just to show, just to validate the process that they're claiming, right? The investigation itself. So,
I believe we can just make one motion addressing both issues at the same time.
Okay, so to combine and to recommend violations of this and that.
Yes.
Okay, that's kind of where I was heading. Okay, we made it easy for you.
And then make sure we
Okay, all right. I'm sorry, I didn't catch the last part, Victor. What?
We should definitely amend the title for item 6. The complaint title for item 6. We definitely should make adjustments to that.
Are you suggesting we change to 6726?
Well, no, because he referenced that, so we don't need to change anything. We can say we
can ultimately decide
right,
what the basis is.
Yeah, I think that stands as it is. I mean, that's what was cited by the petitioner. However, we recommend the task force look at 6725 in the first instance and 6726 in particular in case 23036.
Okay.
I think, right? I think that'll be neat enough together. And I don't know if we don't need to do this in the motion, but I think
my only concern is regarding our agenda, in that it may be misleading to members of the public if they read this initial title and it's regarding something else.
You mean the summary? Right. Got you.
Would it be misleading if it has a recommendation with the proper sections cited in the actual motion itself?
It would cover us. It's just not very clean.
Fair enough. I do see on occasion that the code that's referenced, it would not necessarily, in the title sometimes doesn't necessarily lead to the code that ultimately is what we decide the basis is.
I do understand that, but this one is pretty far off.
Pretty egregiously, yeah. It was a mistake. Yeah. So what is our? Do we need to do anything to modify the title?
Sorry for interrupting, but with agreement of the parties, we can adjust the title to 6726 if you like.
Right. So both parties, in the interest of expediency, are you amenable to the title being recast as 6725, 6726?
I am. Welcome.
No objection here.
All right. Thank you both. Appreciate that. All right. Yeah, because that is just a summary, and that's part of the purpose of the subcommittee is to, as I like to say, apples to apples, oranges to oranges, so that we get it packaged correctly for the full task force. So, okay, Member Hill. So, Victor, would that just be an administrative thing that you guys would do? Do you want that to be in the motion?
We'll note that both parties agreed to change the title, and we'll go ahead and make the change.
Okay, great. So
let's make one motion addressing both items.
But we don't need to mention that technicality. Okay. All right, Member Hill, the floor is yours.
Okay. I would like to make a motion that we combine. Sorry, I'm trying to get it all right here. That we combine file number 23020 and 23036, and that we find
jurisdiction.
That we find this the SOTF has jurisdiction, and find that the requested records are public, and refer the matter to the SOTF for hearing of the recommendation to find violation of 6725 for immediacy and 6726 for failing to keep withholding to a minimum.
And you might want to put in your detail about footnoting each. Well, no, I like what you got. Okay. I will second that motion as stated.
Okay, we have one other person on the line with us. If you would like to make public comment on this matter, you can do so at this time. If you want to raise your hand, you can use the system to raise your hand. I'll give you a moment. There's no indication for public comment at this time.
Thank you, Victor. And no one in the room has approached. So public comment is closed. Cheryl, when you're ready, please take a roll call.
Member Hill?
Aye.
Member Hill, aye. Chair Hyland?
Aye.
Chair Hyland, aye. All right. Just typing this out so make sure I get it right. Moved by Member Hill, seconded by Chair Hyland, that we combine file numbers 23020 and 23036, that we find there is jurisdiction, the records are public, and refer the matter to the task force with a recommendation for a violation of 6725 for failing to respond to an immediate disclosure request, and 6726 for failing to keep withholding to a minimum. Did I get that right?
Very good.
Member Hill, did I get that right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Cheryl, if you could add a note to have our DCA provide us with a analysis of, was it Article 9, Section 1040? Member Hill? Let's get the exact citation in there.
It was the evidence code, right?
Yes. Yes.
Hang on just a second. I got it here.
California Evidence Code.
Yeah, Title 5, Division 2, Part 1. Oh, sorry. Gosh. I've got the wrong one. Hang on. Evidence Code, Division 8, Chapter 4, Article 9, Section 1040.
I'm sorry, division what?
Division 8, Chapter 4, Article 9, Section 1040.
Okay.
Comma, official information privilege.
And this is an analysis of the evidence code?
Yes, just a analysis of that code and if it was appropriate in this case.
So are we ready for item 7?
We are. Thank you, both parties.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for helping move this along. Appreciate it.
Thank you for your time. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wilson. Thank you, Ms. Zelaya. Thank you, Mr. Kaniha. All right. Next item, please.
Item number 7, file number 23026, complaint filed by Socrates Frode against the Department of Human Resources for allegedly violating Administrative Code Section 6725 by failing to respond to an immediate disclosure request in a timely and/or complete manner.
All right. Do we have the petitioner in the room? We do not. Is the petitioner online, Victor?
Victor, do you see the petitioner online?
Do we have to refresh? Let me refresh my. Remember, how do you refresh that that window?
I actually don't see anyone else here besides there's a Chris and then there's
That's me.
Mr. Kaniha still here, but that new window of the attendees is empty.
Mhm.
There's a button at the bottom of it that says refresh, but it's not. There's no one else here.
Where's that button?
Oh, so next to attendees, you see where it says attendees 0?
Yep.
To the right, it says view all. When you click on that,
Gotcha.
then there's a refresh button at the bottom of that screen.
Yeah, that's a new update for us. It used to auto refresh on us, and it would just.
Yeah.
I would always have an updated list, and that's
Interesting.
hard
Yeah.
for me to have to keep hitting that button.
Yeah, you'd think it would do it automatically on the fly, right?
I would
Okay.
have nobody else online.
For the committee's reference, Mr. Socrates.
Microphone. Speak into the microphone.
For the committee's reference, just wanted to let you know that Mr. Socrates Frode was noticed timely. He did get a copy of this agenda and a notice of appearance.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch all that. He what?
He received a notice of appearance for this hearing.
Great.
And he got the web link for the agenda.
Okay. Did he RSVP as we asked him to do? Guessing no.
No, I did not hear from him at all.
Okay. All right. Well, I think he probably would have been online if he was going to be by now. So we should probably dispense with this per our policy.
Section 7B. Section 7B.
That's correct. Yeah.
Right.
Which basically we usually will table this and they have the option to renew it within, is it 30 days or 60 days, Cheryl?
60.
60 days. Thank you. Member Hill, would you like to make that motion?
I apologize.
I'm sorry, we should, excuse me, to the people in the audience, were you here for this particular action?
So noted that the respondents are here. And would you come up and identify yourselves, please?
Good evening, Mawuli Tubenyo, Deputy Director, Department of Human Resources.
I'm sorry, I didn't get your name, I'm sorry.
First name M-A-W-U-L-I, last name T-U-G-B-E-N-Y-O-H.
Thank you for being here after hours and waiting all this time. Appreciate that.
Missing my daughter's bedtime. That's okay.
All right. So what happens here is basically we table this matter, which means we put it on the clock for 30 days. They have the chance to bring it back to us, but if not, it just goes away. And it's noted that you were here, and we appreciate that, and your attendance and your patience.
She's also my colleague from DHR.
I'm sorry, her name?
Do you want to come up?
Alia Chisti.
If you could say it into the microphone, that'd be great.
Alia Chisti, ALIYACHISTI, and I'm the Senior Policy Analyst at DHR.
Okay, not one, but two people were here. We do appreciate that. All right. Member Hill, would you like to make that motion?
Is this a motion to table?
Yes.
I would like to make a motion to table this item.
Per our procedures 7B, was it, Cheryl?
Yes, complaint procedure 7B.
I would like to make a motion to table the item per procedure 7B.
I will second that motion.
We have Mr. Kaniha is still with us on the line. If he would like to make any public comment, you can do so at this time by raising your hand. Okay, it does not appear we have any public comment.
Hold on, he just unmuted.
Nope.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't raise my hand, but am I allowed to ask a question at this point? Procedural question. What are the next steps? And if it's not appropriate, then you don't have
Sure.
to.
No. Well, yeah, I can explain that. So we have a policy where if the petitioner doesn't show up to the initial meeting like this, we basically table it, which means it's closed, but they have 30 days to reactivate it. 60 days. I'm sorry, I keep getting that wrong. 60 days to reactivate it, and they don't go to the back of the queue. It comes back before us in the next possible opportunity.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. All right. I don't see any other members of the public online or in the room. So, Cheryl, if you could take roll on that, please.
Member Hill?
Aye.
Member Hill, aye. Chair Hyland?
Aye.
Chair Hyland, aye. Moved by Member Hill, seconded by Chair Hyland to table the matter and notify the petitioner that they have 60 days to respond and let us know if they want to keep their complaint open as per complaint procedures section 7B.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you for coming. All right. All right. Next item, please.
Item number 8, development and implement an education campaign regarding the implications of Smith versus San Jose on communication practices of commissioners and commission staff.
So I'm scratching my head. Where did this come from? Anyone can give us some background, Victor or Cheryl or Member Hill even?
This actually came from task force hearing.
The last one?
I think it was the one before that.
Okay, that's why it's a bit cloudy in my mind. And
I think this might have to do with the email issue.
okay.
This is the Warfield item where he wanted the email addresses of all the commissioners.
The library has a policy that they will forward emails. Library has a policy that they will forward emails received from the members of the public to the commission members as the request would be made. So if I were to send something to Michael Lambert, I would send it to Ms. Schaub, who is the custodian of record over there.
I think the issue is that part of the recommendation from the task force was that they wanted to suggest that all boards and commissions be assigned city email addresses.
I remember this
that
now.
They
Yes.
wouldn't have to have private email accounts.
Yes, it's coming back to me. Yeah. I'm pulling
disclosure.
Yeah, memory from 4 months ago. Yes, I think you're right. So this might be this might take the form of a letter from EOT, perhaps. Education campaign. I think a simple letter would suffice, and then another letter in 6 months, and another letter in 6 months. We could call that a campaign, right? Is that a campaign? Might be.
Yeah, I think that would be defined as a campaign.
Right.
Or just one would be also be a single campaign.
There you go. But yeah, I think just a very simple. This would have been a great item in our annual report, wouldn't it? Just to pop it in there and remember departments, create individual. Yeah, that would have been good. Yeah, I'd love to get this to our next annual report. So we could start it. We could start this as a letter from EOT, or the full task force, and it could start with like a brief summary of
who's going to draft it and what are you going to put in it.
Yeah, I think I'm just kind of spitballing this as I go, but I think a quick summary of Smith versus San Jose. By the way, this groundbreaking legislation took place. What was it, 4 or 5 years ago? And there's been many interesting cases as a result. A good practice would be to establish an independent email account for incoming commissioners or commission staff, so everything is siloed in the correct place for records requests, something along those lines.
Yeah, I think there just should be some education that if someone is doing the business of government on private devices, that communication is subject to disclosure under CPRA. And that, so first, it's about that, and then ultimately it's about, to prevent the myriad of headaches that might occur, when a public records request might involve your personal device, that just separate them.
Right. Very eloquently stated.
So,
you know where I'm going next.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, I'm happy to. I'm happy to.
I mean, you have some background on this too, so I think this would be great coming from you. And even just something as simple as a 1-page letter, and it could ultimately come from EOT or from the full task force. Probably from the full task force would be appropriate. So maybe that's something, Member Hill, if you'd like to take on, and we can present the draft at a future SOTF meeting, and everyone can approve it with edits and distribute it. That'd be great.
Absolutely. What would be, in order for us to get this on the agenda for the next meeting, what would my deadline be?
It doesn't have to be for the next meeting. This I don't think the timeliness is that attached to it, so you don't have to rush.
Okay.
But typically we would put the draft together, and then we'd send it to Chair Yankee, who would schedule it at his pleasure. That's
okay. All right. Well, why don't I put together a draft? I'll send it to you to collaborate with, and then we can send it over to Chair Yankee from there.
Okay. And Cheryl had something to add.
Yeah, I just wanted to let you know that he's in the process of putting together the June agenda. We've gotten several items on there already, but
it'll probably be the one after.
It'll be the one after?
I would think so.
Okay.
Lovely.
Yeah. All right. I wonder if Member Stein used an open document software for the annual report. That might be the way for us to do these kind of things going forward, right? So that
were we still accepting addenda to the report?
No. I'm just saying she used a. I think for something as simple as this, I think I'm just being careful of us not going back and forth and doing this. offline. I think do a pretty solid draft that you're happy with, and I might reserve my comments at the full task force when we present it. So you can send it to me as a chair, and rather than going back and forth with you, I'll probably send it to Matt,
Okay.
chair of the task force, and then he can introduce it to all the members and notice it, to the public, and then we can all weigh in. That's probably how we should handle this.
Understood.
Great. Okay.
All right.
All right. So, is that an action item, Victor, or discussion and possible action? Well, the action hasn't happened yet, so
I think that should be an action.
okay.
Just action to draft a letter and send it to the chair.
Very good. Okay. So
we have no members of the public with us at this time,
and none in the room either. So I'll make a motion to draft a letter from the EOT for approval by the full task force, courtesy of Member Hill, or Member Hill to draft a letter to be presented to the full task force on this topic. That's the motion.
Oh, there's an official motion. I will second that motion.
Yes, there is. Okay. All right. No members of the public in the room and are online. So, Cheryl, if you could take a roll call on that.
Okay, just a second, I was losing. Chair Hyland?
Aye.
Chair Hyland, aye. Member Hill?
Aye.
Member Hill, aye. Moved by Chair Hyland, seconded by Member Hill to draft a letter from the Education Outreach and Training Committee for approval of the Full Sunshine Task Force.
Yeah.
All right.
Next item, please.
Are we ready for item 9?
We are.
Item 9, announcements, comments, questions, and future agenda items by members of the Education Outreach and Training Committee.
I have one question, Cheryl. Our next meeting is set for July, or
Correct.
slated for July?
July, yes. I don't have a date in front of me. I don't have the calendar in front of me.
Okay. I am going to
Second,
be
look at my phone.
Oconus, which means outside the continental United States. So I will not be here. Is that the 3rd? Yeah.
Let me just take a
Yeah,
look.
I'm not going to be here.
July. The 5th is going to be the task force day.
July
And-
the 5th? Really?
July 5th, yeah.
Okay. I think
Okay.
we'll have to talk about that. But anyway, all right.
So the 18th would be complaint committee and the 25th would be EOT.
Okay. I will definitely not be here. So, Member Hill, this is your opportunity to chair the EOT.
Are there other members of the EOT?
They're not. You'd be the chair of one. No, we would have someone stand in.
Okay.
I'm hoping by then to recruit someone, but
Okay.
right.
Possibly
Well, I
Bruce.
will. If there are if there are any resources that are available from a scripting, I don't know. Is that something that we have?
Absolutely not. You have to dive straight in. That's it.
Okay.
I'm just joking. No, I just want to check with you if you had anything in your calendar that would preclude you from also being there. That was actually my first question.
Remind me I'm sorry, the date one more time, please.
July 25th.
July 25th.
I don't believe so, but let me just double check that real quick. I believe don't believe I will have any other absences. Give me just a moment. I am here and it's on my calendar.
Great. Okay. I'll put a note into Chair Yankee that I'll be gone, and to 1, find us a replacement, and 2, at worst case, a stand-in, at least for that day, so we have a quorum.
Okay.
All right.
Sounds great. I look forward to it and enjoy your time.
All right. Thank you. That's it from me. Anything else? Anybody? Cheryl, Victor, any?
I plan to be here.
Okay.
I will see you in person, Cheryl.
Oh,
Oh,
you will. You have everything's going good?
Everything's
making
going really well. Everything's going
Okay,
really
great.
well.
Great.
I'll be kind of borderline for the next full meeting, but I would suspect after that everything will be just fine.
Great. Good to hear. Good to hear.
Great.
Victor, anything else from you? Nothing?
Nothing for me.
All right. Item 10.
Item number 10, adjournment. I have 8:09. Is
All
that
right.
correct?
Yes, 809.
And I'll make that motion to adjourn.
Second.